welcome one, welcome all. Welcome to another exciting episode of Tales of Citizens right here on the Star Citizen Strategy Network? I can't even remember. But we're going to go with this one. I am Bridger. I'll be your host. Welcome to the program again. Thank you for joining us on our Star Citizen podcast here. We are almost live from somewhere above Terra. That's right, and that's what we're choosing to be this time. Maybe next time we'll be somewhere else, but this time that's where we are. Welcome to my co-hosts as well, of course. As always, we have my good friend Calathulu. Welcome, sir.
Hello, everybody.
And my good friend Gray, also from Team Legacy. Welcome.
Good to see you tonight.
Indeed. So, we've got a lot to talk about today, including the 1.1 patch and all of the issues that it has raised, and all of the interesting things that have dropped since the last show, which was all about the PAX East info. But before we go there, we always talk about our life in the verse, and out of it, as it happens. So, we have been doing a lot of things in Star Citizen and out of them, but let's start by asking Calathulu, what have you been doing in the gaming realm?
Well, the gaming realm, I've been doing a lot of City Skylines, which is an awesome game. Exactly what SimCity should have been, but isn't, or wasn't, or however you want to phrase that. It is awesome. They make Paradox and traffic. To be fair, my civil engineering background with the emphasis on traffic has helped me immensely in this game. I don't get traffic problems. Other than that, a little bit of Darkest Dungeon, which if you've not tried it, is early access, but it's a great little roguelike. It's a lot of fun. You get
is it
a lot
a top-down style or
total side scroller?
Okay.
Side scroller.
So like a Rogue Legacy-ish?
Very much, yeah. You could go. You'd have to really try it to get it, but it's an awesome little roguelike. I haven't enjoyed one as much since I played FTL. And then finally, outside of that gaming world, a lot of high-intensity training cardio and deadlifts, squat, and bench.
Oh, good for you, man.
Yeah, good times.
I'm gonna as soon as it gets nice out. That's when I'm gonna start running again because I've got Zombie Run on my phone and I want to try it out.
Yes.
I believe it was Callie. Was it your suggestion?
Yeah, no, it's an awesome game.
You gave me the suggestion in the middle of winter, so I was like, well, okay.
But you can do it. You can do it in the gym. You just put the phone in your hand, and then you tell it to keep track of how fast you're going while you pump those arms.
Yeah, but that requires a gym membership, and
it can't help you there.
Your arms.
No.
And pumping your arms. There's that.
Indeed.
Definitely that.
But one of the most fun things that I've experienced in the last month or so has been trolling the City Skyline subreddit and seeing two different things get upvoted like crazy. You've got the people who build the most beautiful road networks that just the most like this. Somebody made a gorgeous like mountain Nordic town just like amazingly. And my wife came and looked at it and she's like, I want to live there. Like it was gorgeous. And then you see people that make the most horrific monstrosities that if they were alive, they would be looking at you fidgeting and going, kill me, because the game gives you really good tools that are not easy to use necessarily, but
you may make a mistake with those. And the first time you have a freeway exit that goes halfway through your town to drop you onto the 6-lane road you put in, you have screwed up. You need to rethink your life. You need to rethink your plan. It's all gone to hell.
Yeah. My mistake was I had a really nice little town going, and I had an industrial sector, and I had a little residential area over here. I had 2 exits so that the trucks would get off one, and the regular people would get off the other one. And I had a nice little big, thing through the center that was like this big 4-lane road. And then I was like, okay, I've got to make this bigger. And I just tacked on more stuff to the same. No, it was working great. Make it bigger by going over there and building a new one. Don't ruin what you've done. No. And then it happened. It ruined everything. I tried to put roundabouts in to save it, but it didn't help. No, it was too late. Flatlined
and
everything.
A lesson has been learned.
Yes. And then I restarted. So the other thing that was great is somebody put the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. I'll see if I can pull it up here. It was a perfect, let's see, City Skylines. It was a perfect 6-way intersection. Here it is. It's a fully connected 6-way intersection. And it's got symmetry and everything. If you just search...
he needs to make that in the asset. Like, oh,
Right?
did he actually create that as a thing, or does he just make that on his own?
Well, he made this. I don't know if he turned it into an asset for the mod database or not, but he does.
Asset.
It's so awesome. Perfect. It's got all this symmetry, and it totally works. And the first comment on the Imager hosting where this was I see now. The local governments banded together, had this game created in order to crowdsource like transit design.
And it's all one ways, right? It's got to be all one ways.
Yeah. Oh well, these are three highways intersecting. Three highways intersecting. That's what makes it even more beautiful, because you technically have not just the three different, so 3 highways is actually 6 different road networks, essentially. But anyway, enough about this. Isn't the City Skylines podcast as much as I want it to be right now. So,
well, it could be today.
Yeah, Gray, what have you been? Have you been playing City Skylines at all?
I have not. No City Skylines here. Actually, I've been playing the Heroes of the Storm closed beta. I finally got a key into that and decided not to sit on the sidelines and watch YouTube videos. Started playing a little bit, and I have to say I'm impressed. I'm not necessarily super impressed with the current character and account progression system. It feels a little contrived. But the gameplay is very, very good. They actually do make you make some very difficult decisions as you level up. The skills are compelling. The gameplay is good so long as your team is not pants on head. So it's definitely worth a shot. If you get the chance, go play around. Just use the free heroes if you want to. It's definitely forgiving to new players if you're careful.
So, to be fair, every Dota game, every team is pants on head.
This is true. Well, yeah, except the people that get paid for it. They usually have their pants somewhere around their midriff. Closer to where they need to be.
At least at the midriff. Yeah. That's what we're going for.
Yeah. They got their head through one of the holes. But
I did recently have a video shared with me here. I absolutely love the racing ships in StarCraft, or in Star Citizen, excuse me.
Let me pull that up.
I love watching them, I love flying them, I love playing them, and this is a video called M50 Low Pass that was put out there by, what is this guy's name? Darth Eric, and oh man.
Turn the sound up for this. M50, second fastest ship in the game. Beat only by a 350i. One more time for posterity here. Yeah, let's go back to that before here.
This is what it looks like if something flies past you stationary right now.
And I can't believe it sounds that good. Like, they got the different sound of, like, it coming closer to you and going away, like the Doppler thing. Like, I don't know if that's technically a Doppler effect, the way that they did it there, but it definitely has the and then it sounds different.
And I'm going to be that guy.
It's incredible.
I'm going to be that guy, and this is for Tim. There's no goddamn sound in space.
It's your suit! Your suit! It's the heads-up display is also an ears-up display, okay?
Yeah, that's what it is.
Tim, you're welcome. You can send me my $5 check later.
Okay, hang on a second. Supreme Tokyo said that he's got it set to audio only on his mobile so that he can, how? Wait a minute. Does the Twitch app let you do that? For some reason, I thought he was on YouTube, and I'm like, I always want to turn YouTube to audio only because I want to put it in my pocket or something. Do they have an option?
On Samsung works just fine. Closing the thing and the audio plays in the background, no problem. But for some reason, it's only Samsung. Even stock Android can't do that.
Or custom YouTube app? How does
that
even work?
I think they must. It must make it seem like the screen's on the whole time.
I can play around with that on my Note 3.
All right. Anyway, back to the show.
Back to the show.
So, by the way, does Cities Skylines like the worst name to say ever? Like Sim City, it just rolls off your tongue. Cities Skylines, like you have to pause in the middle there in order to say
City Walk.
I'm going to say it's the second worst name that's common in gaming. The first worst being Star Citizen. What I still think should have been a placeholder name for something much better. I love the game. I am here devoting my personal time to a podcast on it. I love the game. I
We're
hate
here.
the name.
Yeah. I mean, I can see how you could dislike it, but overall, I think it's not hard to say. It
No,
sounds
that's
okay.
true.
Plus, I
I
got
thought
to
you were
say,
going for just.
not every game gives me a really good setup for a Tales of show, right?
True.
Tales
Tales of
Citizens
Skylines.
was work. Oh, yeah,
That's
Tales
true.
of Skylines. That could come
So-
soon, yeah.
So the biggest problem with City Skylines as a name is probably it makes you think of Cities XXL or XL
Right.
or L or whatever
Cities
it is.
in
Yeah.
Motion 2 was the same company's previous
Yeah.
game, but that was more of a, you've got this thing set up and you're setting up train and bus lines. It was almost like an extension of Railroad Tycoon rather than a Sim
Yeah.
City builder.
Absolutely.
It's like a transit authority tycoon. All right, in my
Hold on.
world, I've been doing two things. I've been reading. I just finished a new sci-fi book called Into the Black, which is part of the Odyssey 1 series, which is it's an interesting book. It's another sort of first contact sci-fi series. I've read a couple of those recently. In this one, it's a very interesting premise. Humans put their first interstellar ship out there to go and explore. Like, it's an exploration vessel, but they don't know what's out there, so they literally get, like, the best crew they can from all the special forces and all the best navies in the world to get, because they have no idea what they're going to run into. They fit it with the best weapons, the best armor, the best everything, and they have this transition drive, and the way that they describe it is you watch as, like, it's almost like the homeworld, so that, the ship from the front to the back disappears, right?
Oh, okay.
And the way that it's described as experiencing it, like if you're on the bridge of the ship, you'll literally see every molecule of the bridge falling away into nothingness in front of you and leaving just this creeping void. And it's so ridiculous that it makes people almost throw up when they get to the other side. And one guy like went nuts because he saw the reactor of the ship start to disintegrate in front of him and he started to panic. So it's really interesting. But the crux of it is our humans don't have like, so they meet, I don't know if I should take. I don't even want to give anything away. It's good. It's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Okay. It's good. Okay.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. It's probably better than the Lost Fleet series. But the other thing that I've been doing recently.
Most things are.
Oh, hey. That's not true, though. There's a lot of things about the Lost Fleet series that I like, including the way
That's
that he
true.
handles space combat in probably a much more realistic manner, which is the ships
True.
flash past each other in a fraction of a second, and the computers do everything. Which
I
is,
enjoy the way the books smell.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So my only complaint, and we'll move on, is with Lost Fleet, he spends like paragraph after paragraph saying the same thing different ways, and it just drove me
The
up
writing
the
of
wall.
Lost Fleet, I agree,
Yes.
is not the best. I like his
Yes.
technical,
Oh, yes.
the way he technically describes the combat in space was great. All right, but yes,
Yes.
anyway.
Moving on.
The other thing that I did discover recently, I had my own little epiphany. You see, a couple of years ago, I got really into board games and war games, and I discovered there's this whole class of war games called monster games. And these are games that are so complex that the rule book is like 50 pages long, and it's written in legalese.
Axis and Allies.
No,
Yeah.
Axis and Allies is
way
8
worse
pages.
than Axis and Allies.
10 pages at most, Axis and Allies.
I
this
have
is
experienced
50
these
pages.
games.
And whereas Axis and Allies can legitimately take like 6 to 7 hours, this game will take 50 hours at a minimum. These kinds of monster games. They're like games you
Go
play
for 2
either
weeks.
over a whole weekend or a series of weekends, something to that effect. But the problem I always ran into when I was like, oh man, this one's the best. No, I like this one better, but let me compare and contrast, and then after I'm all done and I like this one best and this one the next best, and I can't play any of them because I can't leave something on the table for that long. I own a cat. So what to do,
Oh.
except I just basically shelved it and said it's not possible. Why even buy these? And now I've been in this house with 2 unused rooms for like 6 months, and it finally occurred to me like, oh, I could totally do that now. So
There you go.
I picked up this game called Unconditional Surrender, which is actually a fairly new one. And this one is a 50-hour game. It covers all of World War II from 1939 to the end. And It is pretty ridiculous. But in order to make it work, I had to buy a custom poster frame that's 44 inches by 34 inches because the map is big, and I wanted to be able to move it from my table into the laundry room where it would be safe. I can close that door and no animals will... Oh, there's the aforementioned animal. I moved that shelf down there, and I walked upstairs to get the games to put on it, and I came back and found her there waiting to find the boxes. Like, where are the boxes? I want to sit on the boxes. Anyway, so we played through a bit of it. There's the setup for the beginning of the destruction of Poland, which I did in a single month, which is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to be able to do it in a single month. If you can't, you fail you fail your Führer test, and you get to go play the Soviets instead.
I think that's the test I want to fail, though.
Yeah, and then you've got then I did the invasion of France a month and a half or so early, so the weather wasn't great. But I did that in order to try and sway Italy to join me. It's complicated, but it worked out in the end. And
like a relationship status is complicated.
Exactly. Germany and Italy. There was actually a great quote. At one point, Hitler is said to have announced that Mussolini and the Italians are their staunch allies against the tyrannical, British or whatever, something to that effect. And when Churchill heard this, his response was, "Well, it's only fair. We had them in the last war." So.
Oh, that guy! All those quotes.
Yes, he's great.
I don't think he's real at this point.
France fell, which was great. That was the whole point. I had to make France fall, but it fell slower than I wanted it to, and then I managed to get Italy in the war, and the British fleet, all three of them, came to the Mediterranean to play, and the Italians did not really like that. And now I can't get the thing to go. Go. There's more of these. It doesn't want to...
Deal?
Bridger really wants to show you his vacation pictures.
Yeah, is that what I want? All right. Maybe not. Maybe we'll go away. Anyway, it's fun. I like it. And I recommend it if you're trying to get into the monster game. Let's move on. So...
I also did want to make a quick plug when we're talking about games here. Crowfall.
Ooh, yep.
There are 12 hours left on this Kickstarter as of me talking right now.
Okay.
16,000 backers, $1.6 million. They have passed their goal. They have doubled what they wanted to make. This game looks awesome. It is a fantasy game. It's not the same bit as Star Citizen. We don't expect to be running around with a joystick.
We did see Chris Roberts plug it on the RSI website.
I need to point something out here. The first quote on the Frickman site is, "It's like Game of Thrones meets EVE Online."
Yeah.
I can't see how that's possible.
Wait a minute. Game of Thrones has cutthroat, horrible individuals doing anything to secure power, and EVE Online... Well, wait a minute. They're the same thing. You don't need to meet.
It jumps from world to world. I assume that must be the
Perhaps.
the thing they're giving. Yeah. From what I was understanding, there doesn't seem to be a set currency in the game.
That's what somebody was saying. I can't imagine. That's why I said, so Stones of Jordan are going to be our main currency again? We're going to find
the ring of
one
Jordan
rare thing that falls on a regular basis that's consumable that everybody wants and use that as a currency.
And then duplicate the fuck out of that.
But yes, it's got all destructible terrain. It's kind of like Minecraft, except without the blocks.
Well, it's using the same technology that powers EverQuest Next, basically.
So the idea is basically that you can win your specific world. There's a time limit. Whoever meets their victory conditions gets a whole bunch of extra resources and stuff, and the world gets deleted. So they have the ability to say, yeah, you can destroy whatever you want. This will only be alive for 3 or 4 weeks anyway. Have at it.
People are excited about the procedural generation in Star Citizen, where they talk about procedurally generating, landscapes and things. That's one of the goals that we surpassed. And that's what they're going to do in Crowfall, is basically procedurally generate these campaign worlds, have people play on them for a few months, and then they disappear. So that is a really interesting idea, especially because one of the things that bugged me about EverQuest Next is they had a static world. So yeah, you could destroy the terrain, but if you came back in a few hours, it will have like regrown somehow, like the damaged relic, like the ruins. Yeah, the land heals itself. Like the ruins of the castle that you were fighting on were destroyed further, but they healed themselves to the state that they were destroyed at before you started destroying them. Like, wait, what happened here? But it sounds like Crowfall is going to have everything actually just stay destroyed.
Yes, at least for the duration of that campaign world, which will eventually, die.
Expire. Yeah.
Which is fine. It means you can go back to your home world, planet that you own.
Yeah.
And use the pillage remains of anything else to blow things up.
It's more like Game of Thrones meets Rift, is what I'm hearing here.
I guess so. Yeah. Yeah. For those of you that are playing, the Stones of Jordan reference was a Diablo 2 reference. Yes. If you didn't get that, if you just thought it sounded familiar, you lose geek points. All right.
I'm just dating myself. Really, is what it comes down to.
Yeah. Didn't we say that was a bad idea? You already turned yourself down. You can't date yourself if you turn yourself down. All right.
So, yeah, we'll move on because that was all pre-show.
Yes.
And just a quick comment. Shout out to chat here. Use your words. If you want us to talk to you about something, if you want to comment about something, words like, "This sucks," do not help your case.
No, that's
that convinced me.
It's legitimate. I'm right there with you.
Clearly, yeah, obviously.
It blows.
That is an opening statement.
Oh, yeah.
You need to follow that up. All right, so quick announcements before we get to the main event. Again, if you do want to send us feedback, if you have questions you think we should discuss on the show, or if you have suggestions about how we can make it better, or you just want Bridger to talk less, then you can send those emails to feedback@talesofcitizens.com. And we also have some new homework, which is actually not new, it's old homework, but we'll probably get to it in 2 weeks unless there's some really big stuff to talk about, and that is The Lost Generation, which is the fiction, the in-universe fiction that is produced by CIG, and The Lost Generation is one of those stories, and it's actually one of the really good ones, and we recommend
This might be my favorite one.
Yeah, we definitely recommend you go ahead and read that, or if you just want to hear us talk about it without reading it, you can do that too. It's all on you at that point. Spoiler warning, 2 weeks ahead of time. Be warned. All right. So that's going to be on, the 5th? April 5th. Sunday, April 5th. Okay. Let's jump into our discussion about Star Citizen 1.1. The first thing is Star Citizen 1.1. Because there were quite a few people saying, hey, why are you calling it Star Citizen 1.1? That's going to confuse a lot of people. And they heard that feedback and they said, meh.
At some point, they had to say meh. At some point, it had to change from Arena Commander numbers to Star Citizen numbers. They made their choice.
I don't think the problem is that it's Arena Commander versus Star Citizen so much as the 1 dot whatever. Right. 1 is a release number that's reserved. Well, it's a number reserved for release. So a 0.1.1, which is how I think of it in my head, is the right way to go about. Yeah, the reality that I warp around myself is it's actually Star Citizen 0.1.1, and that makes a lot more sense to me personally. But Getting Rid of Arena Commander was fine, but it's their whole release numbering thing. And I don't think it really confuses anybody so much as it's just, what do you really mean? So is the actual release going to be version 10? What's going on here? We don't have a Star Citizen yet that warrants this release number.
See, I disagree that it doesn't confuse anybody. I agree that it doesn't confuse anybody that's in the know in Star Citizen.
Fair enough. Any of the community.
I have to say, if I had come across a game, this is actually some footage that Vin provided. So this is our good friend Vin from Team Legacy playing some Arena Commander during the PTU. I wasn't able to take any new footage.
And an excellent pilot, just for reference.
Oh yeah, he's been playing the hell out of this game. He's way better than I am, that's for sure. And this is, by the way, Gladius. This is Gladius. Yes. Can we come to a conclusion about how to actually say that word? Like
Gladius.
Even when I knew it only as a sword. Is it Gladius?
Yeah, it's Latin. It's Gladius.
It's Gladius.
Okay, because
so stop screwing it up, damn it.
My first introduction to the word Gladius was, oh, you're right. That does sound kind of like Roman speaking. Okay, Gladius, Gladius, go and fetch me that wine. My first introduction to that, by the way, Eternal Darkness had a weapon, a gladius, that was hanging on a wall that you had to use in one of these sections, and that was an excellent game. Anyway, back to Star Citizen. My point is, it costs them nothing to add the word Star Citizen Alpha 1.1.
That works too.
It costs almost nothing to add that, whereas you gain almost everything from people who are unfamiliar with the game. If I come up with a game that I've never heard of, and it says 1.x is the current version, and they're like, oh, we just released version 1.x or 1.2 or 1. Whatever. And I say, oh, let me take a look at this. And what I see is an incomplete, buggy mess. I'm going to be like, I'm not interested in that game if they're releasing it in that state, because 95% of the rest of the world uses 1.0 to mean this is the released version. Damn it.
Exactly. I think the complaint really is, it should be reserved for the release version of 1. anything. But in the grand scheme of things, is it going to make or break sales? I can't imagine.
No. And that's the problem, is people are just making a logical argument. Hey, this is silly. There's no reason for it not to be this way. And other people are like, well, what are you saying? It's not going to make the game's going to fail? No, of course that's not what we're saying. Holy crap, there are degrees, people. There are degrees.
What? I'm going to go with it. It's going to fail because of this. Me, today, calling it. It's too late to change it.
It's all over because of this. This is the butterfly effect. The hurricane begins.
All right. So if you're reading this in the future, if you're listening to this in the future, go to Rock Paper Shotgun or any other website. Look for Star Citizen Postmortem, and make sure that the number one reason is they changed the version number and name to reflect a released game, and it confused too many people. Yes.
And we're set.
And we're in the future. Okay. So, anyway.
Right.
It's not a huge deal. It's just a stupid deal.
Yes.
That's what it comes down to. It doesn't make sense to do it this way because it's so easy to do it the other way. So, and like Callie, you said, a 0.1.1 would also would have been harder to say. But I wonder if it's a marketing thing. Like 1.1 sounds way better than Alpha 1.1 or 0.1.1. You know, it definitely rolls off the tongue better. But
no argument, but at the same time, it is easier to say. A marketing thing, it sounds better, 1.1, but it also sounds like it's much further along to the outside viewer, so to speak.
Yeah. I mean, we've had a discussion about this right after the first PAX East, where they talked about Arena Commander for the first time and showed us the actual game. There was a lot of consternation about the fact that they had named the versions V1, V2, that kind of thing there. Multi-crew would be Star Citizen 2.0 or whatever. And there were two different versions of this name that people were sort of throwing around. Well, 2.0 actually means this, and it is a little confusing.
Yeah.
There's no question that, especially if you're part of the gaming media, which much maligned, do kind of suck at following these projects. It would be very difficult to say, well, what does 1.1 actually mean? Well, practically speaking, not a whole lot. It means that they finally hit whatever they said 1 was, and then they said 1.1, and then changed the name from Arena Commander to Star Citizen at 1.1.
I just thought of another potential negative outcome here. Even if you argue, and you're right, that people won't get confused. Let's say they make it very clear on the website and all new people are informed properly that it means Alpha 1.1. What this does, though, is it gives ammunition to the detractors within the gaming media that Star Citizen has. They'll be, look, it released in really shitty mode. Like, they'll lie about it because this kernel of truth exists. Right?
Richard, we need an entire show with you in that voice.
It's because Star Citizen is taking people's money and giving them virtual ships. Heard. Okay. Anyway, as if that wasn't happening in every other medium that has to do with gaming. Anyway, they're taking my money and giving me a mouse. Like, that's just a mouse. That's not even a real animal. They call it a mouse, but it doesn't wag its tail or anything. So, let's move on. We can agree now.
I do want to point out on Twitch, NatDrat00 has said, I think what might be the best way to put this: the alpha is silent.
I love it. I love it. Thank you, Nat.
Nice.
All right, so we had the premiere of the REC system, the rental equipment credits. For those of you not familiar, this is a brand new system that is introduced in 1.1 that allows you to earn credits while you're playing Arena Commander, with which you can rent either weapons or ships to try out in Arena Commander, even though you haven't pledged for them. So it's something that is good for everyone who didn't have a lot of money to spend on the game, and it had been denounced by a segment of the community as the beginning of a pay-to-win nonsense that will never end.
The beginning of the end was upon us.
Yes.
It was a sign of the end times.
It really is. Because those kinds of people, they can see the future based off of it's like the reverse butterfly effect, right? They know that if the wing flaps this way, it means the game is terrible, and even though it's got 1.5 years of development left to go, they know exactly what's going to happen based on this little piece of information. That is actually the butterfly effect, not the reverse butterfly effect.
It's okay. The reverse butterfly.
Knowledge of the butterfly effect.
It's a double-jointed butterfly. Really.
Yes, there you go. So anyway,
I'm not going to do the turning arm backwards trick.
And
I'm
when
just going to stay right here.
When it comes to REC, I'm just going to say one thing. Well, I'll say lots, but I'll say one thing to start. Filthy casuals. My God, it's too easy to get that. We need to cater to the more power gaming community.
Yes,
Filthy casuals. You heard it here first, folks.
So he's calling CIG casuals for making it too easy to earn REC, is that it?
Well, that, and I've heard no complaints about REC, which tells me it's probably okay.
I've already said, as soon as I learned that, A, they give you 5,000 to start, hey, that's nice. And then, like, you earn, like, 1,000 per match, and it's, like, 900 to rent a weapon for a week. I'm like, well, they might have overtuned it just a little bit. To completely silence those people that were calling for the end. No, not calling, but predicting the end times.
This really is the Jack in the Box that pops out the finger. Just bam! Right there.
Just like Guardians in the Galaxy, like...
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, I did not know what that did.
Yes, very good.
Yeah. I mean, really, that is the equivalent of what they've done here.
Yeah.
They basically heard all these people complaining and said, you know what, guys?
Tough.
Let's make them look like assholes.
Well, you know, when you're reacting to the community outrage, you can make them look like assholes so easily.
Yes. True. I think, and that's not to say that there aren't concerns that are valid. That is absolutely the case. Problem is, any concerns about the game at this point in its development are probably dressing things that are simply incomplete. And without the knowledge from Chris Roberts or somebody official saying, nope, this is done, it's gonna be like this forever, you can't make arguments about it being the end times. That's all there is to it. You can say, I'm a little concerned about this, but you can't say, game over, man, game over. All right.
There's a forum for those concerns, but I'll say one thing. I've watched Tempt for the Chairman. I think it's great. It's a lot of fun. But Chris Roberts seems to know about half the answers, and the other half are just kind of made up on the spot.
Yes.
Which I love, because I think he actually will pull them off in the end, but it's still entertaining as hell to watch the, REC, we'll give you a system to rent shit. Sure, why not? And then 6 months later, here it is.
Right. But, you know,
there's some people on the staff who are purposely throwing these things at him because they're like, you know what, guys, I think I'd like to implement this.
I hope so.
Let's just throw that question out there so he has to say yes. Because then he gets the questions like, I would like to be a chef who only makes yogurt in the Star Citizen universe.
How did you figure out my niche?
Bacterial cultures on like an abandoned asteroid mine where they're better than other places. Like, what are you talking about? It's the thing where you shoot things. All right. Anyway.
In fact, it's a game where you only shoot things. We're retconning all the ships to not shoot anymore.
Well, no, apparently you can also wreck ships by trying to land them, if you've seen some of these videos that people have written. Like the automatic landing, it goes... and then goes... and then goes lands again, and it's like... There you go, automated landing system, 10 out of 10. Every wing is broken. I have no guns left.
But your cutlass survived.
It did. You got the cockpit spinning through space. I'm familiar with wrecking ships by landing them, or wrecking planes by landing them from War Thunder and some other flight sims. So this is only me, making me feel at home.
All right, so there's a couple other important things that came out with 1.1. Now that we've had a chance to try out a few of the weapons, have you guys developed any favorites or any that you thought were interesting?
Let's start with the elephant in the room here, because
Mm.
this one comes up frequently.
The Badger.
There's a lot of questions right now about the Sledge 2. I believe it's the Sledge 2.
Yes.
Mm.
It does pretty huge damage, and I do believe this is the gun that CIG made specifically to mount on the front of the 325A.
Yeah.
Bridger is happy.
Hey, this is the only
Now-
time my 325A gets any love. You better not
But I
nerf it,
think-
CIG, or I'm quitting.
Except
This
you can
is an interesting look into their wish to balance modularity
Mm.
versus having specific ships that out of the box have a specific role. What you have on the front end of the Avenger is a gun that has a very specific role. It is the Avenger's boomstick. That is all it does. You strap it onto that ship, and it destroys people. The Sledge was intended to be a smaller version of that
Yeah.
for the 325A. And instead of making an assembly for it and saying the Sledge is a gun assembly which straps onto the front of your nose and replaces the nose of your 325A or whatever else, it's a weapon.
It's a regular
It's a
hard-mounted
small
weapon you can
weapon.
put anywhere. It's a size 1 that does the damage of a size 3, basically.
It does a lot of damage, and it does it through shields. This is completely ignoring any damage calculators, any DPS things, anything else. Its damage per shot through a shield is very high.
Mm.
And that means a lot when you're in a battle and you're cockpitting people.
Fair.
I think that we will see the first real test of how they choose to deal with the modularity versus very specialized ship system with this gun.
Mm.
I'm not sure, I'm no oracle, but I could see them turning that gun specifically into a nose mount for the 300 series.
So that it
and
would
saying
only
this
go on the
replaces-
300 series, and it would replace the normal gimbal mount that's there.
And
Yeah.
it would take a considerable amount of power. So basically, that, as it stands, is the only way to keep it as a very strong weapon for the 325 without having to completely bork the 325's nose segment, without giving every other ship in the game a super powerful, small-sized projectile weapon.
Well, I mean, they could just make the size bigger because the 320. I mean, I guess they wanted a gimbal mount for the front of the 325A, right? So it has to be size 1, is what it comes down to. But they also want it to be strong.
And there's the problem.
The thing that occurred to me is a while ago we had the. I think this was this one that was previously known as the Mass Driver. Because
It was.
kind of looked.
Yeah.
It's still kind of known as that, but they gave it like a real name by calling it the Sledge 2 recently. And
This was the Mass Driver.
Yeah, and it's always been on the front of the 325A, but in the past it had different muzzle velocity in comparison to the Omniski 6s.
Omniscat, yeah.
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 And I think part of that might be specifically that they wanted to make it so the 325 had identical convergence. That way it would have one solid
Yeah.
indicator that says everything moves this speed, it'll all land at the same point. Lo and behold, the 325 becomes the entry-level fighter craft.
Where you can
It's
actually
easier
put
to
shots.
use. It's got a nice projectile weapon that'll train players to use a projectile weapon that has limited ammo. And it has a couple of really nice lasers, or energy weapons, as the case may be.
Mhm.
I think that was a really good plan on their part, but I think making it as anybody can use this weapon has made the forum community around this gun turn into a firestorm. I mean, obviously this isn't the end of the world. There's plenty of time for balancing, yada, 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 yada. But I think this will definitely be the first test of where do we keep things modular.
Hey,
versus...
speaking of the devil, there it is. It's actually there in the 300i commercial.
Indeed.
The Sledge 2. So
Yeah. Where do we keep this modular versus where do we have to say, okay, this is something that has to be an assembly for the front of this ship because otherwise it's going to be way too powerful to put in other places.
Or they bring the damage down on this particular one a little bit to make it more balanced, or they give the 325A some module that only works on that improves the performance of these weapons. I mean,
Indeed.
There are a lot of ways they could go about it and still leave it usable. I think the Avenger gun should get usable pretty much everywhere, but have that kind of thing built in.
Now, the thing about that occurred to me, as I mentioned before, the muzzle velocity of the weapons matters if you want to match, because you almost always want to match them on the various ships. At the very least, if you have like 3 or fewer weapons, you want them all to match, because you need to fire, an alpha strike or something that's going to do a decent amount of damage, especially if you're with a joystick and you can't, easily track what you're trying to shoot. So for a while, the mass driver didn't match up with the Omniski 6. I'm always going to get that wrong. Omniski 6s, because the muzzle velocity was different. So you had to aim in a different place in order to make each one fire. However, now that they've fixed the sledge and they've made it sort of, okay, this matches up with the Omniski 6s, that brings up an idea, or, well, what they're going to have to do is add a muzzle velocity value to everything on the weapon pages when you buy them for your ships, because not having that here makes it impossible to know without, at least they have the rec system now, so you can rent it out with your credits and then see if it's worthwhile.
In a lot of ways, I feel like when we start talking about muzzle velocities and all of that information on these guns, that's info that people will want. That feels like something that even in modern day, you go and buy a gun at the gun shop, at least in the US, you can get that kind of information. Hey, Bird, you're kind of covering my little face there. That's good.
Oh no!
But the idea that some of these stats wouldn't be easily accessible, I think, is only a product of the fact that we're an alpha. The fact that you have to go to the spreadsheet to see much of anything, like the XML that makes up the game files and that kind of thing, I think is just a product of the fact that we're an alpha. I think you'll see a lot more thorough information about the weapons coming out. Even if it's information overload, I think you'll still have access to it in the finished game. Just calling it now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. So, what else do we have going on here? We've got the... So that was just about the sledge.
Yeah.
The other
Panther,
thing... Go ahead.
I was going to say, the Panther repeater is one that feels like a real upgrade to the existing repeater. So, that's the C120 or 117 versus the 127. Yes, it is. But on a Super Hornet, you can mount that. So, that one...
Not gimbaled. Just strap them on there, and life is good.
For the best, yeah.
The one that I want to try out is the Tarantula. I don't know if it matches the velocity, though, but I was looking for, other options besides the sledge to see what else is available, because Tarantula is size 2, so I'm like, it must do more damage than the sledge, but of course the game's not balanced enough yet, so who knows. I also played around with the Rattlers, which are just incredibly fun, and I decided, you know what? If I don't know what kind of missile I'm firing, my enemies certainly won't know. So I just put 2 Rattlers and 2 Dominators, and then I just let it go. Like, I don't know, let's figure out what's going on.
You can usually tell, at least I've been able to tell pretty quickly, whether I'm being tracked by IR or something else.
Well, it gives you a little picture in the middle of the screen,
my
usually.
movement. Oh yeah. And that picture is everything.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You see that picture, and that is all that matters on your screen aside from the rock that's directly in your cockpit you're about to hit. But,
Well, if you can go around that just right, you can scrape that missile off on it, right?
It's true. It's true.
Yeah.
And actually, that does help. I've done that a few times, and it's fun.
Mm-hmm.
So, one new thing, actually, I noticed, I was trolling through the subreddit today, and somebody mentioned that you can use the rear view camera that I think was added in 1.0, or maybe 0.9, to essentially aim your turret if you have a Cutlass or a Hornet with the turret. And
you can indeed.
That's pretty cool. Now we just need a Rio back there on the Super Hornet that'll run your turret for you.
Well, get yourself a track IR, and then you can turn your turret guns.
Use your face to do it. You just have to turn your entire head all the way around. Yeah,
just keep your eyes focused on the camera. Yeah.
I mean, as long as you're holding that button, you can swing your stick around and aim or whatever you want to do there.
Yeah, it's
there
mostly
is the aim, up, down, left, right commands you can bind too. So put that on a hat. And
it's mostly useful for mouse and keyboard people, or mouse and other thing. Mouse plus joystick will work too, because you get to aim really well against the guy who thinks he just has to follow you in a straight line, and like, oh, thank you very much for standing perfectly still. I love that. So that's a new thing that I noticed recently. Also, I had to actually take some steps to try and actually get into 1.1 when it finally released recently. And that is the fact that the hanger module just was always been terrible for me, where I'd walk 10 or 12 feet and then it would hiccup for about 5 seconds and then I'd be able to go again. And even though the game, once I got into the actual game, was fine, it was just in the hanger module that it would hang up. And somebody posted this thing where if you don't have at least 12 gigs of RAM, then you're probably going to have a bad time right there in the hanger module. And they suggested increasing your Windows page file to 12 gigs, and especially if you have an SSD, which I do, and that fixed it. I was able to, there's still a little bit of hitching, but before, in 1.1, it was literally, everything would be fine. It would say 60 FPS. I'd turn around, and about halfway through the turn, it would just freeze and lock up for a solid 10 seconds, and then it would get one more frame, and then it would be 10 more seconds, and then one more frame, like 1/60th FPS or something. It was ridiculous. But
that is pretty nasty.
Yeah. So
haven't experienced it, but that sounds pretty nasty.
Like I said, bringing the page file up worked fine, and I've never had any problem in the actual game itself. I don't know if the hanger is just really under-optimized in that sense, or if it's just going to need that much RAM when the game comes out. Maybe the PlanetSide module will tell us more.
Yeah.
Once we actually get in there.
One of these days.
So there is a link to instructions on how to do that in the show notes. So if you need help trying to figure that out, go right in the show notes. It's under PSA Get More RAM. It's also on the subreddit. So I'm probably going to be upgrading to like 16 gigs sometimes in the near future, and that'll almost certainly be enough, even for Star Citizen. But for now, you can, if you have a SSD, increase the page file on that, the virtual memory, for those of you that know how to do it. So the early landing system. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Speaking of PlanetSide, before we get away from that, we've seen our first on-planet footage of Terra.
Ah, yes. The South by Southwest trailer, is that you're referring to?
Actually, I was talking about the outdoor scene that was in 10 for the Chairman on Monday.
Oh, that's right.
It is gorgeous. Finally get to see some trees. Yeah? Everyone loves trees. And a bit of a panoramic view of what the surface is going to be like. I have to say, it is a beautiful contrast to Stanton. Even if you've only seen like 3 seconds of it.
Let me see if I can pull that up real quick. I'm going to do a search on the subreddit, because I did remember seeing... No, I don't want to see the whole 10 for the Chairman. Okay, well, I'm never going to find it. But I did see it. You're right. There were some GIFs of the panorama.
Mm-hmm. And
Let's do a search for Terra, see if I can find it real quick. Terra Prime, Terra Sneak Peek. This is what I was looking for. Unfortunately, this is not the best thing in the world. It's like a GIF instead. Well, it's one of the good GIFs, I guess.
Yeah, I was watching this.
It's a good size.
It looks like Far Cry is what it comes down to in terms. Look, it's the Far Cry engine. It's the Cry engine, but they've also been using it to its fullest. I mean, look you can see these mountains over there. You got clouds. You've got huge vertical spaces, which is something the Cry engine does, which so few other engines really show off.
It looks gorgeous. I'm looking forward to more.
Yeah.
The only thing we're missing is, some kind of torpedo from the Retaliator hitting right there, blowing it all up.
Not enough violence in that.
We need more violence in this
shot.
shot.
In this scene yet.
All right, so...
Speaking of the Retaliator, now in your hangar. You can't fly it, but it looks pretty.
Man. I hate myself because of how much I wanted to buy that, just looking at their release trailer. Oh, man. Yeah. Why does that look so much better to me than everything else?
Hey,
it's like I have a type now, right? It's like, well, so-and-so likes blondes, and Bridger loves bombers. Like the B-25, B-29, and now the Retaliator. It's just like, Oh, that's my
How does your
thing!
wife feel about this, Bridger?
Yeah,
I
let's
don't
say, be
know.
careful.
I make her dress up like a B-17, you know.
I was say, from what I understand, for a bomber is a whole separate meaning, so let's look out for that.
A bombshell. Yes?
There you
Oh,
go.
man.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, they're redoing the constellation, so we can only hope it is as pretty.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I mean,
but
I don't care.
Constellation's
I don't
being
care
set up
about
so it
that.
has more modularity. That was the real trick on that. They wanted to make sure that people could swap out components and some various things on the Connie, which, was part of that whole debacle about my Phoenix has a hot tub and I hate hot tubs because my
Yeah.
religion hates hot tubs or whatever it was. So now they're allowing you to remove the hot tub if you have a religious objection and replace it with, I don't know, hopscotch course or something. I don't know.
You know what I
look
like
forward to
most about
hopscotch.
this? It's the tail. The way the tail is like that weird X shape, but it's also got the cross along the back of it. It just looks so cool.
It does
Damn
look
it.
pretty good.
I can't do it though. I can't even like melt my Freelancer and my 300i to get one. Like I still can't get it. It's not even on sale, and I know that. And I'm still like thinking like maybe when it comes back on sale, maybe I can like mortgage the house again or something. Like what? What are you doing? What are you doing?
You've got all this
CIG?
extra value because of your new room, so
Yeah.
Exactly.
Just get it reappraised.
Remortgage it. Yeah. All right. So anyway, Retaliator, Schmaliator. I can't have one, so it sucks. The new landing system in place we've already talked about. There's a couple of bugs with the auto lander, but it looks
just a couple.
from
just a
what
couple.
they've shown, it's actually kind of cool the way that they've set it up, and I'm eager to see how it actually works. Because they got to let you land on things you can't see naturally, because it's going to be directly below you. So unless
Yes.
you're in any RSI ship, will let you see.
Yeah.
But nothing
Now-
else.
Elite Dangerous had a great manual landing system set up that I cannot recommend enough, with the virtual camera on the pane and all that. And I hope that they do move to something similar or close. If you've not seen how to land in Elite Dangerous, it's actually fun to do manually. But all that said, can I have my hardpoints back?
Your what?
My hardpoints?
Oh,
I want my
hard
hardpoints
points,
back.
yes.
Oh my god.
I don't care what they call it. I'm going to call it a hard point from now until the end of time, because item port is the worst thing you could have ever come up with. Ugh.
Yeah.
No, that's not true. The Concern Forum is the worst thing in the world.
Okay.
But,
it's-
no, I joke.
Can we please go to the Concern Forum for topics about the word item port?
That's what my concern is. I'm concerned about that word because it's hard to say. Item port. I can't
I think
do
that's
it.
just because you're in the Northeast.
It must be. It must
This
be.
is a
They-
Northeast U.S. problem.
So, Bridger, say chowder.
Chowder.
There you go. Yeah,
Say
no, it's
chowder. Chowder.
I don't- I get what they're saying. An item port, item.
They're
point,
trying to
and-
make it more generic, but hardpoint
But,
is
oh.
generic too. What they're
It
trying to do
is.
is distance themselves from the old system so people don't get confused. I don't care. I like hardpoint way better than item port.
Nothing actually makes me angry in Star Citizen because it's an alpha, and I realize everything will change. Whatever I'm peeved about will be gone in a month and fixed with something much, much worse. But the point is, item port has to go away. That can't stay. I mean, if we need to stage like a rally outside of the Santa Monica office, I live close. I'll go.
Yeah.
I'll carry my little sign around.
We'll make a
I'll
day of it. We'll get a
me.
picnic
Yeah.
We'll bring checkers. It'll be awesome.
Yeah, we'll play a little solitaire there in the street until we get arrested. It's perfect.
Yeah. And then, of course, the mace. Story to tell your kids,
I've already been maced a couple of times, but those are bad stories for
Impressive.
first dates. So, I
There you go. Okay, so yes, item port. So the new mounting system, I definitely would prefer to see the terminology changed, but we've got, now we do have different types of item ports. We've got ones that are, but even then actually, so the way I understand it is it's not actually different types of item ports. Like an engine item port is only going to be different from a weapon item port in that it has hookups to pipes that engines need hookup to or something like that. Or it's going to be in part of the plane where the engine goes. I guess? I don't know. It still wasn't, even with this whole article, it still was kind of confusing.
yeah.
I really think
Yeah,
they just
pretty
need
much.
an engine hard point, and they need and they need like a power plant hard point. Like, I'm totally with them when they say the class system was a disaster, and trying to have like 9 different classes of weapon hard points made no sense. Having one weapon hard point, one engine hard point, one power plant hard point, one, auxiliary system power hard point, or whatever you want to call it. Those all make perfect sense to me, and I wish they'd stick with that.
I think what you're probably going to see is just when you look at the hard points when the game comes to live. I can't go on an item port. It's hurting my soul.
Slot. Call it a slot.
Now, when you mouse over that slot,
oh god,
what you're gonna find is it'll tell you what pipes it's hooked up to.
Yeah.
So in the end, it's going to be exactly the same kind of system, and they're probably going to have to make visual indicators to say, this one is only hooked up to engine pipes, therefore it is yellow.
Yeah, but what's the difference between a power plant pipe needs power and heat and probably CPU, and guns need power and heat and CPU? Like, what?
But the guns will attach to your targeting system.
So you'll need a targeting system. Okay.
But
okay.
Part of it too, don't forget the mini game that the CIG is planning when it comes to these pipes and these things. If my radar gets shot out, I can reroute the power to that through my guns and then like around the toilet and then into the.
Yeah.
So that was one thing they talked about.
Your guns are putting out like echolocation pings.
You actually have to arc really low powered, really slow shots up into your radar dish and drive into it.
But in the pipe model was the idea that you could say, okay, my radar's been damaged and the power to the guns, I'm gonna overload that and hope like hell it doesn't short the guns, and then run the radar with it anyway. Else I'm flying blind out here, and me shooting's not going to happen in any case. So I can kind of see why they want to have like pipes that can go all over the place, but I'm still of the opinion that they'll be like hard point pipes. Whoa, here we go. Like pipes that are only run between certain things on any given ship, and so you can only put a gun in that item port, which is actually a gun hard point now, and that kind of thing. We may have talked this one to death. I know
somebody
why
else
the pipe
at the
thing is
CIG
different.
thing is going to say this is stupid after using the word item port for a month and a half. Is going to say we got to fix this. Ashlyn actually makes a really good point in the Twitch chat. Ashlyn says they might make it like power in, power out. So like the engine or the power plant area is going to have a power out pipe and it needs a power out connection. And you know what? The gun is not going to have a power out connection. So there you go. You won't be able to stick a power plant on the edge of your wing with that particular setup, which is right. That might work.
But I want to.
And yet at the same thing, you're making things less transparent, less easy to understand by forcing people to go, well, this thing, I haven't seen this ship before. Where does the engine go? And now you have to mouse over 6 things to find out which one is the power plant. Like, just call it the power plant slot.
Just from a quick thing on that. This coming from sort of the programmer point of view, I can understand why they want this hypermodularity in terms. It's easier, I think, for them as coders to think of all of these various things as just a point, as an item point, as a port, as this one specific type of thing, and then defining the various things that one type of thing can do and playing with the conditions. From their perspective, I suspect this is much easier. From our perspective as alpha testers, we've got a little bit of confusion going on. But I think, again, we're going to have to see some sort of system that has a mouse over and tell you what this thing is, item colors and or port colors and that kind of thing to try to figure out what can go where. They're not just going to give you a whole bunch of gray balls floating all over your ship and say, have at it. Oh, that didn't work. Never mind. Because in real life, you would not try to attach an engine to the wing. You could tell that wouldn't fit there.
Right.
I mean, really.
So here's what I think. So we've got the whole system now. It's set up so that as you add features to an item port, it reduces the size item that you can put in there. So if it's a gimbaled thing, then it reduces the size. If it's manned, you need space, so it reduces the size. The number of weapons you put on there reduces the number of sizes, or the number of things that you put on there reduces the sizes of each of those things can be. So you can put one size 2 gun in a manned turret, or 2 sized 1 guns on the turret. And then missiles, I also got the impression, if I recall correctly, that missiles are going to be one size smaller than the hard point that they're attached to, or something like that. And maybe the hard point size is going to determine how many missiles you can strap onto a different thing. So my question is, when am I going to get an item port on the side of my Freelancer Miz that allows me to have a gimbaled man dual missile rack on each of those things?
There's something that's important to note here, too, that I think a lot of folks are possibly missing. And that's saying, a turret can either mount, or let's say a size, 3 turret. Let's just go with that at this point. Got a size 4 slot, size 3 slot, put your size 3 turret in there. And supposedly that can fit, a size 2 and a size 1, or 2 size 1s and a man slot, or a size 1 gimbaled and a size 2. All these various things. I don't think they're going to say, here's a ball, strap crap to it. I think what they're saying is, there are 3 or 4 different kinds of turrets that could fit in this hole that each have these various kinds of stats.
Right.
So if you have a size 3 turret slot, you could get a manned turret that would fit there with 2 size 1 guns. Or you could get a manned turret that fits there with a single size 2 gun kind of off
Actually,
filter on the side or something.
Actually, a size 3 would only allow a manned size 1 gun.
There you go.
Yeah.
So whatever the case may be on that, I don't mean to muddy the water here, but it's definitely going to be a situation where it's not like you have a turret, it can do anything because it is super silly putty turret. It's going to be there are a variety of turrets that can fit in this spot.
Right. You'd have to buy a gimbal, like the bottom of the Hornet has the little gimbal with the 2 turrets, the 2 weapon mounts, right? And
it's a gimbal that you can put a turret on.
Right, that's a gimbal that is designed for 2 size 1 weapons. You can also get a gimbal that's designed for a single size 2 weapon that would fit the same slot. So you'd have to buy the gimbal and the weapon to fit the right slot. Essentially. Look at how slot fits right in there. Don't need to say item port. Don't need to say that. There's no need.
Can you say slot without giggling? Just repeatedly.
You can only get so many pipes in that slot.
Yep.
You've ruined it. You've ruined it.
Pipes.
Now we're back to item port.
There are 2 pipes that have to go into this slot for it to feel the way you want it to on your ship.
Oh God. Oh no.
On your rocket ship. Yes.
We're gonna
abandon this topic.
Abandon slot conversation.
All right. So the Vanguard concept sale is coming up. It's actually 2 days away? It's Friday. This Friday.
Yeah. Friday.
So it's the Deep Space Fighter, which means it's going to be like the P-51 of starships, like the escort long-range fighter that can have drop tanks and all kinds of stuff on it.
Or 2 crew? Or pilot and
I think so, yeah.
Passenger? Yeah.
But the real question is, how cool will it look? Because the Gladius looks really cool. Gladius, damn it. Gladius. And the Retaliator looks really cool, but will how many really cool designs can they possibly pump out of there? That Skunkworks CIG. I don't know. 8. They're done. Because then you got the Cutlass, which is ugly.
It has been exceeded.
And the Caterpillar, which is ugly. No, they're ugly by design, and that's what makes them good looking.
I'm looking forward to the concept of the Vanguard here, but I'm really curious if it's not going to be too dissimilar from the existing Xi'an Car-2, in that they're both 2-seaters, they're both intended for combat operations and some long-distance operation. It might have more guns, whereas the Car-2 is a better, scout, has different profiles, but I want to see if this is like the first human ship that kind of takes over for an existing alien role.
Ah, that's not
so that
bad.
could be kind of cool.
Big Chunk, I'm kidding about the Cutlass. I was just joking. Whenever you talk about the Cutlass, though, you have to talk in Antonio Banderas accent.
Oh no!
Because they have the Tango commercial. That's why it's trapped.
That they do.
Tango. Oh, that was beautiful.
It was beautiful.
The fact that they were able to get Tango in that was a good trade.
What's the Retaliator commercial going to look like? I got to see that. The build your own, build your own bomber. No, the build your own battleship. That was the tagline for the Javelin, wasn't it? That's right. So we'll see. Anyway, so the Vanguard, you think so Callie, is the $250 price point for the Vanguard, is that confirmed or is that a guess?
That is what I saw posted.
Confirmed by Ben. That was direct from Ben.
Okay.
Yeah. So whether or not that remains true tomorrow is a separate issue. But as of the last official post, it was 250, which also puts it at a similar price point to the Car 2 Owl when it was available.
Yeah,
This
and
is
it's quite a bit higher than a lot of the other, sort of single or even two-seaters. Like, I just kind of compared in my head. I mean, what was the Gladius when it came out?
Gladius?
What was the Gladius? The
105 for a
Gladius.
package.
It was
Yeah,
105?
it was 105 for a package, or it is now at least. Back
See, it still
in
seems
concept,
like it's twice as expensive as the other
but
sort of single-seat things.
The
but...
Super Hornet was what,
Yeah,
180?
that's true. So I guess that
was
means
like a
that
180,
it's a very
185.
it's a very specialized.
It is.
item.
Well, it's long distance, and if fuel begins to matter, we rambled about this a little bit, that could be really important. This could be one of the few things that you could, without a fleet of carriers or refuelers, actually get out into the deep black without dying.
Yeah.
That's
And
relatively important.
And maybe even have a little cargo space, unlike, say, the Car 2.
Well, and if you start thinking about exploration, a lot of those are going to be a lot of the jump points that haven't been found are going to be in very dangerous areas. We're absolutely going to need to be able to have some sort of ship that's capable of escorting some of these other craft around, at least beyond the point where people can reach them.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting an app that tells me where the cheapest gas prices are in Star Citizen. like you just pull up your Mobi-Glass and you're like, all right, Ginger, tell me where the closest gas station is. It's like, did you want to send an alarm? No, gas station. Like, these things still don't work 900 years in the future.
You just gave me an idea for a project to do over the next year.
So, there you go. You got your iPhone out. You can find this gas giant with this guy who's got his what's the name of it? The ship that does refining.
That'd be the Starfarer.
Thank you. I guess the Starfarer. It sounds like a cruise line to me. No.
The mining ship. What's the mining ship?
That's
Orion.
Yeah. So wait a minute. The Starfarer does refining? I thought the Orion did refining.
No, the Starfarer
refines minerals.
Minerals, not fuel. And I want to say that the Starfarer really should have been reserved for, I don't know, whatever cruise ship they're going to release at some point. And
the Love Boat.
The Love Boat, yeah, there you go. But we won't go into that.
Every Starfarer comes painted like a ladybug. That's.
I need that. I need that to happen. I need that for my Phoenix. I need the ladybug exterior. And that's right. For those of you who are out there, I do in fact have a Phoenix. Hate on me all you want in chat. It's going to be glorious, and I'll love it.
I call shotgun in the hot tub.
I have
no religious affiliation against hot tubs. All right. So the last segment that we have to talk about here tonight is the concern of the week.
Okay, I need to go get some whiskey before
We're going to get some audio
this.
for this at some point, folks. We will find something thoroughly facepalm worthy to play here. Don't you worry.
Though
it might just be a clip from too many cooks.
I'm trying to pull out a concern that I think might have valid points. So the concern here for this week is CIG is being unrealistic with subscribers about the pace of development. And this is a really interesting question because it leads to a number of other questions. Namely, is it the developer's responsibility to explain how the pace of development works? It sounds like in this case, however, the author of this concern, Taylor, is essentially saying CIG is purposefully misleading people, or maybe even not purposefully, maybe they're accidentally misleading people. They're being too optimistic about their own production schedule. What do you guys think about this? I mean, it says with subscribers. I don't know if it's specifically with subscribers. Is he talking about Jump Point magazine in here? I didn't see anything that seems specific.
I'm really not sure what he means by with subscribers. Because the only thing that they're really being
backers.
given,
I think so. It's got to be backers. I haven't seen anything on
subscribers. All they're getting is Jump Point and the Vault.
Yeah.
I mean,
let's go with the
does that mean
assumption
that he feels
he's
being led on by art existing? That would strike me as a little bit odd.
Yeah,
so,
let's assume he means backers and just go with that. His first point is that he says that they didn't just go with good old-fashioned unrealistic space dog fighting. Instead, they're inventing zero-G flight mechanics at the same time as trying to make them fit ships they've already sold that aren't really designed for them. Well, okay, that's got a couple of different points in it. It sounds like Gray has something to say about this. What do you think, Gray?
I really want to slam my head on the desk with that one. When you're talking, this is two separate statements he's making. Let's be very clear here. The first one is they didn't just go with good old-fashioned unrealistic space dogfighting, even though most people I know love it and the fantasy it is. That in it of itself is a point that is critiquing Cloud Imperium Games' choice to simulate realistic physics.
He's asking for a different
engine.
Game.
Yes.
He's criticizing them for making the game they wanted and said they were going to make.
But to be clear, they can simulate physics. This isn't a hard thing for CryEngine. The hardest part of it, which he gets to later, is the 64-bit architecture required to simulate it over 1 million kilometers. That's where you need floating point, and that's where it starts getting ugly. When you start talking about, well, I know people love this, and I don't understand why they didn't do this, it's because they never said they'd do it. Not even in the Kickstarter. We were never misled. We were told this is what the process would be. Now, when you get to the second half of this statement, the guy's talking about instead they're inventing zero-G flight mechanics. They are not inventing these mechanics. They are tweaking how much they want these ships to be responsive and how quickly they will black you out when you slam your face into the headboard in front of you and you come to a breaking stop.
And let's make no mistake. If you used an arcadey style physics, you'd need to do just as much tweaking to make the game feel the way you want it to feel. There's no set, like, cut and paste genre that you can just pull from. Like, first-person shooters, yes. Every first-person shooter makes you run like this to give you a realistic feel, like this fast to make you get an arcadey feel. Like, that's been done so many times. You have templates for how fast people should go, how high they should be able to jump, how fast the bullet should travel, etc., etc.
Can we just run the M50 low-pass video again? just one more time here for reference.
Yeah.
Because this just drives me nuts. The fact that this guy thinks somehow that they are making this up and that this is somehow a new thing that is different from what they had intended. He clearly, either he was around from the beginning and he wasn't reading, or he wasn't around from the beginning and he wasn't reading.
So the only thing I can think about as far as back-adapting craft would be the Constellation, which was originally described as the space superiority fighter, and that's gone, and that's fine. I mean,
it still has giant turrets.
It does have giant turrets.
It does still have two turrets.
It's a great
and
ship.
Strong shields. I think it
it's
still
an all-rounder.
qualifies.
And a snub fighter.
It was. That was the complaint for a while. Was they changed that, took away the space superiority description, but left the ship effectively unchanged in concept.
Yeah.
Now that would be the only real ship I could think of where it's being back adapted. Now, what the complaint might be is that we were promised one thing and got another, but we were promised in the beginning of the whole Kickstarter a Wing Commander-esque game that you played through one series, and if we reached a certain funding level, and we were going to get the persistent universe. And outside of that, there's not a promise other than that they're going to make a game which is up to the standards of the developer. Just like every other alpha game out there, just for reference. There's nothing special about this.
He was very upfront from the beginning that they wanted realistically modeled physics. That's been on the table.
That was a video during the Kickstarter phase called Physics, where he showed off their realistic physics, where
the model thrusters.
Not just okay, when you do this, the ship moves as if it's got real physics. No, the physics engine applies thrust with the thrusters, not to the model in a general sense to make it turn left, but with the thrusters themselves in order to make it happen. That was as far back as the Kickstarter video. I specifically remember watching that.
We all saw it. So, in the end, we're not getting the arcadey feel. They're not back adapting craft. You can make one argument, and it's a poor argument for that, and that's about it.
Yeah, it's saying the ships weren't designed for those physics is complete bullshit. Yes,
Well,
some
now,
of them
no,
have
hang on a
wings.
second.
We
Yes. The fact is, these ships, if they were designed for real 3D space combat, would look like Star Furies from Babylon 5 or some similar of that, because that is a ship that was realistically designed. You put thrusters here and here to help you turn. These ships are designed to look like sports car slash
Yes.
World War II era sleek dog-fighting machines or what have you. Similar
But
effects.
they were designed for this physics system, despite looking like sports cars.
Right, the thrusters are strong enough that they can make sports planes. I guess is that what we're calling them? Sports
I think
ships.
the rule-
sports planes.
sports
That's
ships?
basically
rule
it,
of
yeah.
cool.
that can move as if they were physically designed like a Star Fury from Babylon 5, but they still look like a sports ship, essentially. A sailing yacht, in the case of the 890 Jump. So the next criticism that he has lined up here is they proposed a mechanic initially of a massive persistent universe, then realistically said instancing would be required, then had to develop a 64-bit architecture to support it all because AAA plus then some graphical demands have never been applied in such a scale, so they're basically reinventing the mechanics of online play. That's why I backed them! But outside of that, none of the things that he said are things that like were not really known ahead of time. They knew they were going to do instancing. They knew that they were going to need 64-bit architecture. That's all stuff that was known.
They proposed a mechanic initially of a massive persistent universe, comma, then realistically said instancing would be required. Wait, so you can't have persistence and instancing? This is no longer a thing?
Yeah, we always saw that we'd be getting instancing and the persistence from the get-go. That was very open about it during dev. It's not a great argument to make. The 64-bit thing, it's just kind of made up. I don't understand where that came from at all. So you got me.
Now, the other thing that he says here, perhaps I'm wrong, but I feel a lot of people expected a modern-day freelancer with more sub-roles and a persistent online universe. That didn't require re-engineering the space sim. The server tech, sure, I can buy that handling that high-res traffic is tough and time-consuming, but the individual components required to build what I thought most of us wanted from SC were already on the market. So the problem here is his unstated major premise is everybody else thinks like I do. Which, let's be fair.
And that everybody wanted an arcadey product.
Yeah.
Which I really didn't. That was my complaint about Freelancer, was it was way too arcadey for what I actually wanted. And I think a lot of that had to do with Microsoft kind of rushing it out the door more than anything. But
right. Watch out, it's a space dog. It's right behind you!
It is right outside and angering me. But, you know, I can't... I love my dog, but he's a loud little bastard. Anyway,
yes.
So, yeah, with Freelancer, it ends up being a very arcadey feel, and it didn't really, to me, capture what Wing Commander was. You know, that whole like feel of the world, the grittiness to it, the combat engine, all that. It was just a mouse game, basically, an arcadey thing that wasn't much fun.
So the last kind of point that he makes here that I think will make a lot of sense is he says, if CIG is going to follow the path of most complexity and gold standard innovation to the end, this is fine. I'll still buy and play it and love it, but I'll log off until the real release dates. Yes, if you want to make the best damn space sim ever, copyright restricted, trademark, then you will need to have a gold standard for graphical fidelity and controls feel and how your game, you know, handles physics and how it handles large spaces. That's correct. Now, what he's getting at here is, I think, a real issue. It's not like the way that he portrays it, I can't agree with. But what he's pointing out here is a real issue. There are a large number of people that shouldn't be playing the game right now. I'm one of them. I am not afraid to say I don't want to play Star Citizen right now. The only reason I do is for you guys. It's not that I don't
And
necessarily...
self-loathing. He hates himself a little bit.
Yes, there's a little bit of
It
that.
is
too.
the masochism, really, more than anything.
It's my religion requires self-flagellation, so I play early access games in order to do
This is Bridger's.
Yeah.
This is Bridger's 50 Shades, really.
Yeah, it's my kink. So, my point is, early access games, they're so bad, but it's so good. Anyway, my point, if it's not already lost on you because of the metaphors and innuendos, is that
Slots and pipes.
I've always said that I am going to have a certain finite amount of time that I will enjoy any game before I get tired of it, for various reasons. Sometimes that number is like 700 hours or more in the case of games like Civilization V or Europa Universalis. Sometimes
Or
that number...
a single game over Europa Universalis.
Exactly. I'm still not done with it yet. Or sometimes it could be 200 hours in the case of something like TF2, or sometimes it could be 4 hours in the case of Portal, or Portal 2 would be like maybe 16 hours because I beat it twice and I was really happy going through it both times. But the point is, that number exists for every game, and that number can change when the game is updated and patched and things like that. But the new stuff doesn't always add stuff fast enough most of the time. So I know that there's a certain amount of time that I will enjoy Star Citizen to its fullest. And the choice I have to make is, do I want to spend a large chunk of that time with an unfinished, unbalanced alpha of a game, or do I want to spend the large chunk of that time during the actual glory days of its emergence from beta and into release? That's where I want to spend the most of my time. So I play as little as I can get away with and still talk about it here on the show. I get every release, I try to get in and play at least a couple of hours of the new releases so that I can talk about it here with you guys. But I don't want to ruin my later experience by getting all of the experience now in a buggy version that takes 5 minutes to load. So that's not to say that people who enjoy it now are bad people or are wrong for enjoying it now. A lot of other people...
Yeah, Vin,
for a great example, he loves diving into this stuff, and there's nothing wrong with that. I wish I was one of those people. I just can't do it. So that, I think, is important. Because some people think that the game should be fun right now. Because Arena Commander is this module that they released to the public, therefore it should already be fun. That's just not the case.
Yeah, we're testing, basically, and that's the end of it.
So the point there is it's CIG's responsibility to make sure everybody knows that, hey, by the way, the game isn't fun yet. It's only fun for a small percentage of the population who really enjoys the nuts and bolts.
And, that's why the alpha is silent in Star Citizen.
Clearly.
To bring it full circle.
Isn't that misrepresenting themselves? It kind of does bring it full circle here. So, I don't know. I think
I think a lot of what is happening right now with this title is an unprecedented amount of crowdfunded, how shall we say, focus.
Yes. On a a lot of people are learning how the game development process works.
And
now.
They're not just learning how the game development process works. They're getting to see the nuts and bolts as they explode on their screen and go flying out of what should be the simulation boundary and smash into planets.
Yes.
There's an incredible level of detail that goes into developing something this complex. There are 300 people now worldwide working on this thing.
Yeah.
Trying to put out these in sundry patches for us. That's a lot of effort.
Mm-hmm.
And when people are coming into this with the expectation that they know nothing about game development, but they know everything about what makes a fun game, you are going to have some serious headbutting very, very quickly. And I think that's what we're seeing now. The folks who have recognized off the bat that they know enough about game development that they don't want to be part of slamming their head into an alpha, step back quietly and occasionally make comments when something seems to be amiss or really fun. Take your pick. The people who know absolutely nothing about game development are all over the forums.
Yeah.
Because they have been told this is a crowdfunded project.
We want
therefore
your input.
Their opinion matters.
And they're mad as hell, and they're not going to take it anymore.
Now you've ruined that line for me. Thank you.
No problem.
It now refers to the concern forum. It's tied forever in Gray's mind.
Every time from this point on, I'm going to throw up a little in my mouth.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
But
I like it.
I think the problem that we're running into is that you're right to say it's not necessarily a fun game to test when you have a 4-minute load into a helmet that's on backwards, into all of your thrusters are damaged, so your ship can only go 10 meters per second. And then when the thrusters are fixed, your control profile is wrong. So all of a sudden you can't accelerate because your throttle is on the wrong axis.
Yes.
This is an
you have to
unpolished
delete
alpha.
your user folder again.
Again, one more time.
And
Don't worry,
patched
guys.
it.
This will fix it for 2
They
hours.
patched it. By the way, I'm sorry. A moment of silence for our poor friends in Australia and Canada who can't be here with us today because they're still used up all their quota downloading one Star Citizen patch. Oh,
yeah.
Man. They are especially the people who this is not designed for. If you can't download multiple tens of gigabytes a month, this is not the position you should be putting yourself in.
Well,
I admit, this reinstall we just had to do for 1.1 is the first time I've had to reinstall the game since the Hangar module released.
That's true.
I still have the original installer and a lot of the original game files sitting in a separate folder purely for nostalgia.
You're gonna bring people over, and this is when, back in 2013. Do you remember that? And they had.
And this is why
this
my
game.
hard drive makes IT professionals like choke on bile.
Does it look like the equivalent of a desktop that's just completely filled with icons?
Yeah, I turn on the share screen and have 10,000 icons there. No.
All right.
No,
Anyway,
I avoid that much.
We got to wrap this up here. We're running out of time. I am glad that you guys joined us again, and we will be back in a little bit under 2 weeks. We're actually a couple days late because of some car trouble I had on Sunday. But we will be back on the 5th of April, assuming no more car issues jump out at me, and we will be talking about, very likely, Cassandra's Tears, the in-fiction story. Very, very good story. Hope that you guys have finished that so you can...
great short read, guys.
Follow along with us. Yeah. Definitely, very, very much worth it. Aside from that, we will see you later for Team Legacy and the Star Citizen crew. I'm Bridger signing off.
Unrepentant, you guys have fun. All right.
I didn't do a great job of timing it there. I just want another 30 seconds of music at the end.
It's all right. It's all right.
Thanks,
okay,
everybody.
So I have to go tackle my daughter before she runs amok in the house. You guys have fun.
All right. See you later, man.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Glane asks, how often do we stream? We do this show every other Sunday. I will often be found streaming games on twitch.tv/Bridger15. The word bridge, the letter R, the numerals 15. And I got that name actually from a sci-fi show. The Sequest DSV. Roy Schneider? Is that how you say his name? Or
Roy
Scheider?
Schneider.
Scheider.
Yeah.
Roy Scheider played Captain Nathan Bridger of the Sequest Deep Submersive Vehicle. That's a show that really went off the rails. That was kind of ridiculous. I don't know if you ever watched that show.
Not really. Not that one.
No, it's a 90s sci-fi show about this
I
massive...
remember it being on. I'm just terrible at watching TV.
It's this massive submarine. It's basically the size of an aircraft carrier. underground. Let me see if I can find... They kind of have an image of it here. There it is. And it's... Oh, that's not helpful. No, it's not. Let me see if I can find a better image of it. But it's this giant submarine, and they have a dolphin that essentially talks. They've got a translator for the dolphin, and he does help them out of situations. But this is a really interesting show because it had Roy Scheider as the captain for a while, and then they got Michael Ironside to be the captain in the third season. And it was so weird. Like, at the end of the second season... So the first season, it was all like, we're exploring in this new universe, or it's like the Chinese are like the superpower. They're trying to do some weird things. The Koreans are the bad guys. All kinds of things. And, like, the underwater area has, like, people mining minerals down there, and they have to save people and do all kinds of normal, like, Monster of the Week kind of stuff. But then you get to, like, the second season, and aliens, like, abduct the Sequest.
What?
En masse and bring it to a water-based planet because they need it to help them fight a war or something ridiculous. It's so weird. It's like it jumped the shark, but it embraced the jump. Like, it's just like, we're not just going to jump the shark.
And it's Sequest and it jumped the shark?
That's right.
Well done.
I think they fought a giant squid at some point.
Did they ever actually jump a shark?
They didn't, no. Here's the example. It's basically the size of the USS Enterprise, for all intents and purposes. They have all kinds of interesting things going on. But I remember I like that show. But it just went way off the rails at the end, and I was like, what the hell is going on? What happened to my show? You guys ruined everything. But I still like Captain Nathan Bridger. He always knew what to do. All right, I'm going to go get a drink because I have been thirsty for like the last hour and a half.
That sounds like a good idea. You didn't pull a Bobby Jindal, though, and just like reach and chug?
It's upstairs somewhere. I can't.
Can't do it.
All right, see you guys later. Thanks for watching. See you guys in a couple weeks.
Catch you guys soon.
Or subscribe to Twitch if you want to see me play Europa Universalis again or something. Or City
It
Skylines.
is kind of entertaining in a sort of cathartic way. I code to it. I just listen to Bridger's voice wash over me.
Damn it, why is Tuscany doing this to me? The Austrians abandoned me again! Yeah.
Pure catharsis. It's great.